Oxford University. My life is extremely comfortable, or at least it was. Till one mild summer's day when I was thinking about the English obsession with weather. I had an idea for a book. We complain ceaselessly about our temperate climate, but what must it be like to live with real extremes? What was life like in the hottest, coldest, wettest and driest inhabited places on Earth? I put this question to my publisher, and to my horror, she said go and find out. This is the Atacama Desert in Chile, a long thin slice of rock, salt and sand trapped between the Andes and the Pacific. It's one of the most arid environments on Earth. What I found incredible was that man, consisting of 65% water, had been living in this area for thousands of years, and yet it's been desert for millions of years. My mission was to find out how people survive in this land of practically no rain, and indeed why they came here in the first place. I started my journey with a walk along one of the few man-made lines drawn on the surface of the globe, the Tropic of Capricorn. It's no accident that the Atacama straddles this line. Most of the world's deserts tend to be found in two bands around the tropics of Capricorn and Cancer. They lie in an area where warm, dry air, having lost its moisture as rain over the equator, descends, creating strong, high-pressure zones characterized by clear skies and very little rain. Even without other geographical anomalies, this place was always going to be dry. In fact, the average annual rainfall for this area ranges from 20 centimeters up near the Andes to less than a millimeter near the Pacific coast. Arica, the driest town on Earth and my ultimate destination, lies on the coast at the very north of Chile. But I had arrived in Antofagasta, close to the heart of the Atacama. I'd come here because I'd booked myself in for a baptism of fire. Life in a place this rainless boggles the mind, so to give myself an insight, I was leaving the crates of mineral water behind and going on a 2-day training exercise with the Chilean commandos. It's said that in the 19th century, the Chilean army won a famous victory over the Peruvians by crossing the Atacama, surviving only on the dew that had collected on the weapons and shovels they left out overnight. If anyone could show me what dry really meant, what would happen to me and my body without enough water, I was sure these guys could. I checked my rations. I've got 2 litres of water for 48 hours. The rest we're going to try and harvest in some way. And as far as I can see, just the one meal. On previous trips to the Gobi and the Sahara, I'd been told to drink at least 10 litres a day, so 2 was going to be pushing it. The place they were taking me was ominously called the Plain of Patience. It was 8 hours inland from Antofagasta and 2.5 kilometres above sea level. Apart from the odd dead bush, it was rock and dust as far as the eye could see. As soon as we stopped, the first thing the commandos did was make a slightly more advanced version of their 19th century forebears' dew traps. I was teamed up with Zeus, and in principle it's all very simple. Dig a hole and cover it with a plastic sheet. But it's not quite as easy as you might think.
Okay, see, bastante?
Oh, no.
No. Oh.
Okay, maybe.
Team effort, but if they're both
Chilean commandos. I'm sure it works first time.
The principle is that any dew forming at night condenses on the top of the sheet and then runs down through the holes made in the sheet and collects in a billy can underneath.
And now?
And now the stone.
We left the dew collectors to do their thing and headed out away from the vehicles to find a place to camp. Quite why we couldn't camp by the dew pits, I didn't understand.
So, first rest, and I think we may be stopping here until nightfall. It's very loose sediment, quite easy to dig a hole in which to have a bit of a kip. It's 12 hours now since anything passed my lips, like food or water. Well, I was going to say you're not allowed to drink any water. Of course I could. I could guzzle a whole bloody lot, but I've only got a litre. So, I'm conserving resources. So far so good, I suppose. Or at least so far so okay.
The commandos like to blend into the desert, so they don't sleep in tents, but in two-man pits covered by a tarpaulin. But the lack of food and the thin air had tired me out so much that even the prospect of sleeping with Zeus seemed attractive.
Oh, we're just putting this in?
But sadly, it wasn't bedtime. All we were doing was stowing our bedrolls. Because in the desert, the cool of the night isn't for sleeping, it's for marching.
Nine kilometres.
Kilometers.
So we've been 9 kilometres.
It's a very short march.
It's a very short march. For these guys. But not for me.
My pack was appallingly heavy, and 16 hours without food made me even more thirsty. I was rapidly getting through my rations.
Time about all in, it's about midnight. To add to the list of things that are aching, I can give you my tongue, which is very odd feeling. No doubt related to the fact that not a lot of water's passed over it recently. And not really very sure how much more of this I can cope with.
I'd signed up for the 48-hour exercise, but after 18, I'd felt I'd learnt enough about life without water.
Whistle. Get up, you lazy.
I'd had an awful night, and was hoping the commandos were feeling as rough as I was.
Dormir bien?
Ah, excellent.
Excellent. Ah, good. Qué bueno. Dormir bien? Excelente también. Dormir bien?
Bien, excelente.
Ah, tres excelentes.
Mucho calor.
These guys were seriously tough. Since yesterday morning, we'd had nothing to eat and a pitiful 3 hours sleep. I only had 250 mils of water left, so was relieved when at the crack of dawn we headed back to the dew pits for what the commandos called breakfast.
But actually, it's a fair amount,
You can feel the taste.
The dew collectors had produced just a couple of mouthfuls, but with my body screaming out for more, every little counted.
It's warm. It tastes very foul, but it's water.
I was keenly aware of the fact that I was losing a lot of moisture. You do in deserts because they're hot and they're dry, and you need to drink a lot to replace it. But on 1 litre a day, you're fighting a losing battle. You can survive for 2, maybe 3 days, but no more. I'd read that if times got desperate in the desert, you could always recycle your urine. The sun heats the pit until the water in the urine evaporates. Then, unable to escape, it condenses on the underside of the plastic sheet and dribbles down into the billy can. My experiment was going to have to work, because the 100 mils I had left wasn't going to be enough after 20 kilometres in the heat of the sun. I felt as if I was going to the edge, like the soles of my feet were hurting, I was developing blisters. My calves, my shoulders, my tongue, my Adam's apple was getting like a small ball of cement in the back. Not pleasant at all. After 3 hours, I couldn't take any more.
I'm a mid-latitude boy. I think this is probably as dry as I can get.
I'd come to my senses. I was a geographer and a travel writer, not a commando. After 36 hours, 30-odd kilometres, 1 meal and just 2 litres of water, I was gagging for my own urine. Doesn't look like urine. Doesn't smell like urine. And my God, doesn't taste like urine. Tastes very good, actually. Free water. My baptism was over, and I had not enjoyed it. But at least I was beginning to understand what dry really means. Before I came out here, I worked out how much water I used back home in Oxford. I drink, bathe, wash my plates, my clothes and my teeth just like everyone else. But it came to 350 litres a day. At the little fishing village of Chungongo, their fresh water comes in a tanker every week. Each resident has a daily allowance of just 15 litres. Not using it for drinking or anything else, it would take them over 4.5 days just to run one of my baths. I met up with Pablo Osses, a geographer like me, who said he'd show me how he and his team had come up with an ingenious way to increase the village's supply. Fog doesn't occur down at sea level, does it, Pablo?
No, never.
No.
Never. You need mountains.
Yeah. Fog is the only regular form of precipitation this coastline gets. Pablo and his team measured that on average, fog shrouds these hills on 200 days of the year. But it was only when they noticed the quintrall and the romarillo plant that they got their big idea. This specialised flora survives purely because of an ability to extract water from fog. The team reasoned that whatever plants could do, people could do better. So they installed fog catchers. How exactly does the system work, Pablo?
Basically like your hair, no?
Like my hair?
Your hair, yes. The mesh is like this,
Yeah.
and the drops are like this.
Okay.
No? And the drop, it's keep it there, drop
Yeah.
it. And one drop, another drop, it's big drop, and by gravity,
Mm-hmm.
it goes down
Right.
to the trough,
Yeah.
and by the trough to the pipeline.
They built 100 of these nets across the hilltop. They were a simple, ecologically sound,